Captain David Kim stood on the metal bridge of the Iron Will, looking out the huge window into space. The ship was old. It was scratched and painted gray, but it was strong. Outside the window, the stars were bright and cold. But today, the stars were not the only thing in the sky. The Synod fleet had arrived. There were 10 of them. They were huge, sleek ships that glowed with blue light. They looked like perfect diamonds compared to the rough, heavy metal of the human ship. The Synod ships were beautiful, but to David, they looked like sharks smelling blood. David put his hand on the railing. He was a tired man. He had black hair that was starting to turn gray at the sides. He wore a simple uniform, not the fancy robes that the alien leaders wore. He looked at the view screen on the wall. It flickered to life, showing the face of an alien. The alien had pale skin and large, black eyes. His head was bald, and he wore a tall collar made of gold. This was High Prelate Vex. "Humans of New Jeongju," Vex said. His voice was smooth, but it sounded like he was talking to children. "You are in violation of the energy accords. Our sensors detect high-power mining equipment on the surface of your colony. This technology is too advanced for your species. You must hand it over to us immediately." David narrowed his eyes. He looked at his second-in-command, Lisa Park. Lisa was sitting at her station, typing fast on her keyboard. She was a small woman with glasses and quick hands. She looked angry. "They aren't here for mining equipment, Captain," Lisa said, keeping her voice low so the microphone wouldn't pick it up. "That is just an excuse. They are afraid. They heard we upgraded the defensive grid. They want to keep us weak." David nodded. He knew she was right. For 50 years, humans had lived under the rule of the Synod. The Synod was a group of alien races that controlled the galaxy. They claimed to bring peace, but really, they just wanted control. They said humans were too violent and too crazy to have good weapons. Humans were only allowed to use old technology. Guns that fired bullets, rockets, simple metal. The Synod used energy. They used lasers and plasma. They had shields that could stop energy attacks. They thought shields could stop anything. But they were wrong. David pressed a button on his chair to talk back to Vex. "This is Captain David Kim of the Iron Will. We are not giving you anything. The mining equipment belongs to the colony. We need it to survive. Go away, Vex." Vex smiled. It was not a nice smile. "You are foolish, Captain. Do you think your rusty little ship can stop us? We have the Aegis shield. It can stop your nuclear missiles. It can stop your asteroids. We are the masters of this galaxy." "I said go away," David repeated. His voice was calm. "Very well," Vex said. "Prepare to be disciplined. We will disable your engines and take the technology by force. Do not worry. We will not kill you all. We will just put you in your place." The screen went black. David turned to the crew. The bridge was quiet. Everyone looked nervous. They were good people, but they were outnumbered. The Synod ships had their main guns charging up. Blue lights on the alien ships grew brighter. "Status report, Lisa," David said. Lisa didn't look up. Her fingers flew across the keys. "Enemy shields are up, Captain. Power levels at 90%. Their forward guns are locked onto us. They expect us to fire missiles or lasers." "Do they expect the mass drivers?" David asked. Lisa looked up and pushed her glasses up her nose. A small smile appeared on her face. "No, their sensors are calibrated for energy signatures. Our railguns use no energy pulses to fire, Captain. They just use magnets and speed. To their computers, our guns are invisible until the round is already in the air." David stood up straight. He walked to the center of the bridge. He felt proud of his crew. They had worked hard for this moment. For years, the humans on New Jeongju had been building something in secret. They had taken the old railgun technology and made it better. They used gravity to help the bullets fly faster. They used heavier, harder metals. The Synod called humans primitive. They said humans liked loud explosions and heavy metal. They were right. But David knew that sometimes a heavy rock is better than a laser pointer. "Enemy is firing warning shots," a young officer at the back shouted. "Lasers hitting the forward hull." The ship shook. David held onto the railing. "Damage report?" "Minor, Captain. Just scorched paint. They are toying with us." David looked at the view screen again. The alien ship in the front, the Synod Judgment, was moving closer. It looked magnificent. It floated there, glowing with power. It thought it was safe behind its blue shields. Vex came back on the screen. He looked bored. "Surrender now, Captain, or we will target your city." "Don't do it, Vex," David said softly. "Lower your shields." Vex laughed. "Why would we do that? Your weapons cannot hurt us. We are the Synod." "Because you are arrogant," David said. "And that is your weakness." David took a deep breath. It was time to show the galaxy that humans were not to be underestimated. He gave the order that would change everything. "All batteries," David said, his voice loud and clear. "Target the Judgment. Load kinetic rounds. Maximum velocity." "Loading," the crew shouted back. The excitement in the room was rising. They were tired of running. They were tired of the aliens treating them like children. On the outside of the iron will, large doors opened. 2 long metal barrels slid out. They looked like old cannons from history books. They did not glow. They did not make noise. Inside the barrels, massive tungsten slugs, the size of cars, were loaded into place. Magnets began to hum. "Ready," Lisa said. "Fire," David commanded. There was no laser beam, no bright flash of light. Instead, the iron will kicked back hard, shaking the entire ship. A loud thump vibrated through the metal deck plates dotted in space. Silence is normal, but if you could hear, the sound would have been deafening. 2 metal slugs shot out of the cannons. They moved so fast that the air around them turned into plasma. They didn't travel like lasers. They traveled like bullets from a gun, but much, much faster. The Synod crew on the Judgment laughed. "They fired rocks," one alien said. "Shields are holding." But the sensors didn't beep. The shields didn't flicker. The tungsten slugs were moving at 10% of the speed of light. They were too fast for the shield computers to recognize as a threat. The shields were designed to stop energy and slow-moving missiles. They were not designed to stop a solid piece of metal hitting with the force of a nuclear bomb. The slugs hit the Judgment. It wasn't an explosion of fire. It was an explosion of metal. The slugs tore straight through the energy shields as if they were smoke. They smashed into the sleek hull of the alien ship. The ship twisted and bent. The first slug went in the front and came out the back, taking the engines with it. The second slug hit the bridge. On the view screen, David watched the beautiful diamond ship crumple like a piece of paper. The silence on the bridge of the Iron Will was absolute. Then Lisa Parks started to laugh. It was a quiet laugh at first, then it got louder. "Direct hit," she said. "Target is destroyed. Engines are offline. Life support is failing." David didn't laugh. He just stared. He knew what this meant. They hadn't just won a fight. They had broken a rule. On the other Synod ships, panic began. Vex's face appeared on the screen again. He was no longer bored. He was pale. His wide eyes were full of fear. What was that? Vex screamed. "What did you do?" "I told you," David said. "Railguns first. We don't need your fancy energy weapons. We have gravity and metal, and we are not afraid to use them. Fire everything." Vex yelled. "Destroy them." But it was too late. The humans had seen the truth. The shields were not perfect. The Synod was not invincible. David looked at his crew. They were waiting for his next order. "Load the next round," David said. "Target the ship next to the Judgment. Let's show them that humans hit hard." The Iron Will turned slowly in the dark sky. The era of running was over. The Synod had controlled the galaxy for a long time, but today, they learned a lesson. Never underestimate a species that loves big guns. David gripped the railing. The battle had just started, but he already knew the outcome. The galaxy was going to change, and it was going to change because of a simple metal slug thrown very, very fast. "Fire at will," David said, thought the ship shook again. Another slug flew across the darkness of space. The Council's control was beginning to crack, and the sound of the cracking was the thunder of human railguns. The smoke from the burning engines of the Synod. Ships drifted through the silence of space. It was a strange sight to see. Usually, the Synod won their battles easily. They would float, their blue shields glowing, and zap their enemies with lasers from far away. But this battle was different. The human ship, the Iron Will, had punched a hole right through the center of their formation. The huge alien dreadnought called the Judgment was now just floating junk. Twisted and broken in the dark. Captain David Kim watched the destruction on the main screen. He felt a mix of relief and cold fear. They had won the first fight, but he knew the Synod would not give up. The Synod did not like to lose. They were proud and they were cruel. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission," Lisa Park said from her station. Her voice was serious now. The excitement from the first shots was gone. She knew what was coming. "It is from the remaining ships. They are retreating to the edge of the system." David nodded. "Good. Let them go." "No, Captain," Lisa said, looking at her data screens. "Look at the pattern. I am not running away to their home planet. They are moving to a blockade position. They're stopping just outside of our jump range." David frowned. He walked over to her console and looked at the map. Red dots representing the Synod fleet were forming a circle around the star system. They were guarding the exit routes. "They are trapping us," David said. "They are going to call for more ships. They will turn this whole star system into a cage." On the planet below, New Jeongju was in a state of panic. The colony was not a military fortress. It was a place where people mined asteroids and farmed in biodomes. The people were hard workers, but they were civilians. Now, they were the targets. Down in the capital city, inside a tall white building, Thomas Choi sat in his office. Thomas was the human ambassador. He was an older man with a kind face and gray hair. He usually wore a suit to look professional, but today his tie was loose and he looked tired. A hologram of High Prelate Vex floated on his desk. Vex did not look happy. "This is your fault, Ambassador," Vex hissed. "You allowed these savages to build weapons of war. You have broken the peace of the Synod." Thomas stood up. He straightened his jacket. He was scared, but he knew he had to be brave. "They are not savages, Vex. They are defending their homes. You attacked us first. You tried to steal our equipment. We were enforcing the law," Vex shouted. "And for this, you will be punished. We have sealed your star system. No ship can leave. No food can come in. No medicine. We will cut you off from the rest of the galaxy. Eventually, you will starve. Or you will freeze in the dark. Then, you will hand over the railgun technology, and we will accept your surrender." The hologram flickered and vanished. Thomas sighed and sat back down. The blockade was a death sentence. New Jeongju did not have enough resources to survive alone for years. They needed trade. They needed supplies. Thomas picked up his secure phone. He needed to talk to the only people who could save them, up in orbit, The phone on the bridge of the Iron Will rang. David answered it. It was Thomas. "Captain, we have a big problem," Thomas said. "They are blockading us. Vex says he will not let any ship leave until we give up the Railguns." David looked out the window at the damaged alien ships. "If we give up the guns, they will kill us all anyway, Thomas. We both know that. The Senate does not forgive." "I know," Thomas said, "but we cannot fight their whole fleet. We have one battleship and a few small patrol ships. They have hundreds of ships on the way. We need a miracle." David looked at Lisa. She was listening to the call. She had a strange look on her face. It was a look of determination. "Captain," Lisa interrupted, "there is something I need to show you. And Ambassador Choi, you should come to the ship. It is about a secret project." 3 hours later, David, Thomas, and Lisa stood in a large underground hangar on the moon that orbited New Jeongju. It was a secret base, hidden from the alien sensors. In the center of the room sat a machine dot. It was huge. It looked like 2 giant metal rings standing next to each other, connected by thick cables and pipes. It hummed with a deep, low vibration that made their teeth ache. "What is this?" Thomas asked. He adjusted his glasses, looking at the strange device. "This," Lisa said, walking up to the machine and patting the cold metal, "is why the Senate is so afraid of us. They didn't know about the Railguns. But they really don't know about this. Is it a weapon?" David asked. "A bomb?" Lisa shook her head. "No, Captain. It is a teleporter." Thomas laughed nervously. "A teleporter?" "Lisa, be serious. That is impossible. The Senate scientists say that teleportation is just a fantasy. It violates the laws of physics." "The Senate says that because they haven't figured it out," Lisa said, her eyes shining. "They use portals. They use gateways that stay open. But this is different. This creates a temporary fold in space. It jumps an object from point A to point B instantly. No travel time. No distance." David looked at the machine with doubt. "Can it teleport a person?" Lisa hesitated. "Not yet. The energy required to stabilize the quantum field for a living person is too high. The G-forces would turn a human into jelly, but..." She paused for effect. "It can teleport a ship. A big ship. If we reinforce the hull." Thomas stared at her. "You can move the Iron Will." "I can move the whole fleet," Lisa said. "All at once." David walked around the giant rings. "But why haven't you used it before?" "Because it takes a massive amount of power," Lisa explained. "More power than our generators can produce. But if we hook it directly into the planetary core of the moon, we have enough energy for one jump. Just one. And after that, the machine burns out. It is a single-use ticket." The room went silent. David thought about the blockade outside. The Senate ships were guarding the space lanes. They were waiting for the humans to try to fly out. They were ready to shoot anything that moved. "If we try to fly out, we die," David said. "But if we teleport, we can jump right past them," Thomas said, finishing the thought. "We can escape the blockade." "No," David said, his voice hard. "Not just escape. If we teleport behind them, we can attack them from the rear. We can destroy the blockade before they even know we are gone." Lisa nodded. "That is what I was thinking too. But there is a risk. The calculations have to be perfect. If we miss the target, we could teleport inside a star. Or we could fuse into a rock." Thomas looked worried. "If we fail, we die. If we stay here, we starve. It seems like the choice is made." Suddenly, the room shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Red lights started to flash. "What is that?" Thomas yelled. "Warning shots," Lisa said, looking at her tablet. "The Senate is bombarding the moon. They are trying to force our hand. David grabbed Lisa's shoulder. How long until the machine is ready? It is ready now, Lisa said. But we need to bring the fleet here. We need to link the ships to the teleporter coordinates. David turned to Thomas. Go back to the colony. Tell the people to get to the bunkers. Things are going to get loud. Thomas nodded and ran to his shuttle. David looked at Lisa. Let's do this. Bring the fleet in. For the next 2 hours, the sky above the moon was busy. The human ships, all 12 of them, moved out of orbit and landed near the secret hangar. Engineers ran back and forth, connecting thick cables from the teleporter to the ship's engines. They were connecting the navigational computers inside the iron will. The crew was tense. They had fought aliens today. Now, they were gambling their lives on a machine that looked like it belonged in a mad scientist's lab. Captain, the pilot said, Synod fleet is moving closer. They are detecting the power spike. They know something is happening. Let them come, David said. He sat in his chair and strapped himself in. Lisa, are you in position? Lisa's voice came over the radio. She was in the control tower of the hangar. I am here, Captain. The core is spiking. We have one shot. I have set the coordinates to appear directly in the center of the enemy formation. It is going to be a very close jump. I like close, David said. Initiate the sequence. On the moon, Lisa Park took a deep breath. She looked at the alien ships on her screen. They were closing in, firing green lasers at the moon's surface. She pushed the large red button on her console. The giant rings began to spin. First slowly, then faster and faster. A blue light started to glow between them. The light grew brighter and brighter until it was blinding. The humming sound turned into a high-pitched scream. The space around the moon began to twist. The laws of physics were bending inside the iron will. David felt the ship lift off the ground, but they weren't using thrusters. The ship was dissolving. It felt like his stomach was being pulled through his mouth. Then there was a flash of white light, and the world disappeared. They were nowhere. They were everywhere. They were in the space between spaces. Then, as fast as it began, it stopped. The iron will slammed back into reality. The alarms were blaring. David gasped for air. Report. He shouted. Sensors are back online. The navigator yelled. We did it. We are behind the enemy lines. David looked at the main screen. They were right in the middle of the Synod blockade. But the alien ships were not looking at them. They were still facing the moon, firing at where the humans used to be. The human fleet had appeared behind their backs, silent and invisible. Target lock, David said, a cold smile on his face. They are not looking at us. Let's give them a surprise. The humans were back. And this time, they had brought a magic trick that no one had ever seen before. The Synod's control was about to break completely. The silence that followed the jump was terrifying. For a few seconds, nobody on the bridge of the iron will could breathe. The air smelled like ozone, the sharp scent that comes after a lightning strike. The lights on the ship flickered and then turned red, signaling emergency power. Captain David Kim gripped the armrests of his chair until his knuckles turned white. His stomach felt like it was still back on the moon, spinning in circles. He looked around the bridge. His crew was shaking their heads, trying to clear the dizziness. Status report, David said. His voice sounded rough, like he had been shouting for hours. Lisa Park's voice came through the speakers, sounding weak but steady. Jump complete, Captain. We have arrived. On the main screen, the stars looked different. They were in a new part of the star system. But more importantly, they were not alone. Right in front of them was the back of the Synod blockade. The alien ships were huge. They were arranged in a perfect half circle. Their heavy guns pointed away from the humans, toward the moon where the humans used to be. To the Synod, the humans were still sitting there, trapped. The aliens had no idea that the human fleet had just blinked into existence right behind them. Stealth systems? David asked. Passive only, the tactical officer replied. The jump created a gravity wave. They will see us in 30 seconds. David stood up. The dizziness was fading, replaced by a cold, sharp focus. 30 seconds is a lifetime in space. Sound the battle stations. Tell all ships to target the engines of the Synod vessels. Do not let them turn around. On the surface of the moon, Lisa Park sat in the control tower. The giant rings of the teleporter were glowing a dull red now. The machine was smoking. Sparks flew from the control panel. The machine is overheating, one of her engineers yelled. We need to shut it down. No! Lisa shouted. We have to keep the connection stable for a few more minutes. If the spatial rift closes while our ships are still transitioning, they will be crushed. She looked at the timer. They had to hold it together. She pressed a button on her console. This is Lisa Park to the fleet. You are clear to engage. Repeat. You are clear to engage. Good luck. High Prelate Vex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Aegis. He was looking at a holographic map of the human colony. He was smiling. They are hiding, Vex said to his crew. Fire the main battery. Destroy their city dome. Show them that we are serious. Sir, a sensor officer said, his voice confused. I am reading a strange energy signature. It is not from the colony. Vex turned around. What is it? A glitch? I don't think so, sir. It is spatial distortion. It is right behind us. Behind the blockade, the space suddenly tore open. It looked like a jagged scar in the night sky. Blue and white lightning crackled along the edges of the tier. And out of that tier poured the human fleet. They came out fast. The Iron Will led the way, followed by the heavy cruisers Punisher and Avenger. They did not come out slowly. They shot out like bullets from a gun. On the bridge of the Iron Will, David watched the distance counter count down. 5,000 kilometers. 4,000. We are in range. The Synod ships were trying to react. Alarm sirens began to wail across the alien fleet. They could see the humans on their sensors, but they were facing the wrong way. Turn the ship around. Vex screamed over the communication channel. Raise shields. Face them. But space battles are not fought in seconds. They are fought in moments of preparation, and the Synod had none. They were exposed. Their engine exhausts were hot and unprotected. Their bridge towers were wide open. Fire. David commanded Dot. It was a beautiful and terrible thing to watch. The human Railguns spoke again. But this time, they were at point-blank range. The tungsten slugs didn't have to travel through the void for minutes. They crossed the distance in the blink of an eye. The first barrage hit the Synod ships directly in their engines. The engines exploded in brilliant balls of orange fire. Without engines, the huge alien ships couldn't move. They were sitting ducks. Target the bridge of the lead ship, David ordered. Target Vex. The Iron Will shook as it fired its heaviest rounds. The slugs smashed into the side of the Aegis. The ship's shields tried to activate, but they were too slow. The metal hull crumpled Dot inside the Aegis. Vex was thrown to the floor. The lights went out. Emergency lighting bathed the room in red. What is happening? He yelled. Why are they here? How did they get behind us? It is the teleporter, sir. A crewman cried. They have the technology. They jumped. The realization hit Vex like a hammer. The humans had done the impossible. They had broken the laws of physics that the Synod claimed were unbreakable. And now those primitive humans were destroying his fleet. Back on the moon, Lisa watched the battle through the teleporter's sensors. She saw the explosions. She saw the Synod ships breaking apart. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it." But then, the ground shook violently. "Lisa! The core!" An engineer screamed. "The teleporter is overloading. The feedback loop is too strong." Lisa looked at the gauges. The needle was in the red zone. The energy from the jump was building up in the machine. If she didn't dump the energy, the teleporter would explode. And if it exploded, it would take the moon base with it. "We have to vent the energy," Lisa yelled. "Open the exhaust ports." Directly into the atmosphere? It will cause a massive electromagnetic pulse. It will knock out all our electronics on the moon. "Do it," Lisa shouted. "Otherwise we all die." Lisa pulled the lever. On the surface of the moon, a massive beam of blue energy shot up from the base, piercing the dark sky. It hit the atmosphere and spread out like a shockwave. This was the event horizon. It was not just an explosion. It was a distortion of gravity and magnetism. The shockwave rushed outward from the moon, moving faster than sound. It hit the human fleet first. The lights on the Iron Will flickered and died, but the backup power kicked in immediately. The humans had prepared for this. They had hardened their electronics. But the Synod fleet was not prepared. The shockwave slammed into the alien ships. It didn't destroy them, but it played havoc with their delicate systems. Their sensors went blind. Their navigation computers crashed. Their shields flickered and died. The aliens were left floating in the dark, unable to see, unable to move, and unable to shoot. David saw the opportunity. "Their shields are down. They are blind. All ships, switch to rapid fire. Tear them apart." The human ships roared. The railguns fired faster than ever before. The alien ships, now defenseless, were ripped apart by the metal storm. It was a slaughter. The Synod, who had prided themselves on superior technology, were helpless against the brutal simplicity of human guns. On the bridge of the Aegis, Vex watched in horror as the view screen showed his fleet being destroyed one by one. He was angry. He was terrified. But mostly, he was humiliated. "Retreat," he whispered. "What, sir?" his crewman asked. "I said retreat." Vex screamed. "All ships, jump to hyperspace. Get out of here. Run away." But for many Synod ships, it was too late. Their engines were already destroyed. For the Aegis, the hyperdrive was damaged by the electromagnetic pulse. They were trapped. David saw the lead ship trying to turn away. "Don't let the flagship escape," he said. "Prepare a boarding party." "Boarding?" the tactical officer asked. "Sir, that is dangerous. They have the command codes for the entire sector," David said. "If we capture Vex, we can stop the reinforcements. And we can broadcast a message to the galaxy. It is time to tell everyone the truth." On the moon, Lisa Park collapsed into her chair. The teleporter was silent now. It was ruined, a melted pile of metal and wire. But she was smiling. The shaking had stopped. She looked at the monitor showing the fleet. "We won," she said to the empty room. "Railguns first, teleporters next. And we're still standing." The battle was not over, but the balance of power had shifted forever. The humans had shattered the Council's control, not by being better, but by being unexpected. And now, they were coming for the commanders. The flagship of the Synod, the Aegis, drifted in the darkness like a wounded whale. Its sleek hull was scarred and blackened from the human railgun fire. Blue sparks danced along the broken superstructure where the shields had failed. Inside the massive ship, the corridors were dark, lit only by emergency red lights. Alarms were silent now, replaced by the hiss of escaping air and the groans of metal under stress. On the bridge of the Iron Will, Captain David Kim watched the alien ship carefully. He knew that even a wounded beast could bite. Status of the enemy? David asked. They are dead in the water, Captain, Lisa Park replied. She was monitoring the sensors from the Iron Will. The EMP from the teleporter explosion fried their computer systems. Their engines are cold. Their life support is running on backup batteries. They are sitting ducks. David nodded. Prepare the boarding teams. We need to capture Vex before his ship loses all atmosphere. But Captain, the tactical officer said, looking worried, that is a Synod dreadnought. It has thousands of crew members. Our boarding shuttles are small. It will be a street fight in there. David looked at the image of the damaged ship. He knew the risks, but he also knew that this was the only way to end the blockade for good. If they just destroyed the ship, the Synod would send another fleet. They had to capture the leader. They had to show the galaxy that the Synod was not invincible. Load the shuttles with heavy armor and shotguns, David ordered, and get me the coordinates of their bridge. We are going in. A few minutes later, a group of small, blocky shuttles launched from the human fleet. They looked ugly compared to the smooth alien ships, but they were armored like tanks. They flew across the gap between the two fleets, dodging debris. Inside the lead shuttle, David checked his rifle. It was a heavy kinetic weapon, simple and reliable. Beside him sat Thomas Choi. The ambassador was wearing a bulletproof vest that looked too big for him. He looked nervous, but his face was set. You don't have to come, Thomas, David said. Yes, I do, Thomas replied, adjusting his glasses. Vex knows me. If we find him, I might be able to talk to him. Or at least, I need to be there to represent the human government. This isn't just a military fight anymore. David, it is politics. The shuttle shook as the pilot, a young woman named Sergeant Miller, steered them toward a hole in the Aegis hull. Brace for impact. Laura yelled. The shuttle crashed through the melted metal of the alien ship's hangar bay. The sound was screeching and loud. The landing skids hit the deck, sparking as they slid to a stop. The rear ramped, dropped, and the human soldiers stormed out. The alien crew inside the hangar were surprised. They were tall, thin creatures with pale skin. They carried energy pistols that looked like toys. They fired at the humans, but the human soldiers wore thick armor. The laser beams bounced off the metal plates. Open fire! David shouted. The human soldiers fired their rifles. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. The heavy bullets tore through the alien light armor. The aliens panicked. They were used to fighting at long range with shields. They had never experienced close-quarters combat with humans. Humans were aggressive. They shouted and moved fast, charging forward with terrifying speed. Clear the left flank, Miller yelled, blasting an alien drone with her shotgun. Move! Move to the elevators. David pointed toward the main corridor. The fighting was intense but short. The humans pushed the aliens back, sealing the blast doors behind them to cut off reinforcements. They moved through the ship like a virus, unstoppable and deadly. They encountered aliens in engineering and in the mess halls, but the Synod soldiers were not trained for this kind of war. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the Iron Will, Lisa Park was working on a secret project. She had brought a special device on board, a small drone she had been developing for years. Are you in position? Lisa asked over the radio. Roger that, the pilot of a small stealth drone replied. I am inside their ventilation system. Approaching the bridge now. Good, Lisa said. Deploy the package. On the bridge of the Aegis, High Prelate Vex was screaming. His face was covered in sweat. He watched the security monitors, seeing the human soldiers advance through his ship. Stop them. Vex yelled. Activate the internal defenses. The internal defenses are offline, sir. An alien officer cried. The humans' MP destroyed the control circuits. We have to fight them hand to hand. I will not be captured by monkeys. Vex shouted. He pulled a small device from his robe. It was a self-destruct trigger. If I cannot rule, I will burn this ship. Just as Vex's finger hovered over the button, a small vent grate above his head crashed open. A tiny spider-like drone dropped down. It landed on the console in front of Vex. What is that? Vex yelled "Dot" before the guards could shoot. The drone activated a bright flash of light and a deafening sonic boom. It was a stun grenade, but much stronger. The shockwave knocked Vex and his guards off their feet. Vex dropped the trigger. The little drone extended a mechanical arm and snatched the device, scuttling away with it quickly. The blast doors to the bridge exploded inward. David Kim and his team rushed in, smoke swirling around them. "Nobody move!" David shouted, his rifle pointing at the aliens. Vex tried to stand up, but he was dizzy. He looked at the humans standing on his bridge. They looked terrifying in their bulky armor, their faces hidden behind visors. He saw Thomas Choi step forward from behind the soldiers. "Hello, Vex," Thomas said calmly. "I told you we were not afraid." Vex hissed. "You cheated. You used magic." That teleporter was impossible. David walked over to Vex and grabbed him by the collar of his gold robe. It wasn't magic. It was human ingenuity. We built it with scrap metal and math. And now, your ship is ours. Lisa Park's voice came over David's radio. "Captain, I have control of their communications array. I have bypassed their security codes." "Good work, Lisa," David said. "Connect me to the galactic feed. I want everyone to hear this." David pushed Vex into his chair and looked at Thomas. "Ambassador, you are the face of our colony. You tell them." Thomas nodded. He stepped in front of the camera that the aliens use for fleet broadcasts. David gave Lisa the signal, and she hacked the signal. Suddenly, Thomas's face was broadcast to every ship in the Synod fleet and to every listening post in the sector. "People of the galaxy," Thomas began. His voice was steady. "This is Ambassador Thomas Choi of the human colony New Jeongju. For too long, the Synod has told us that we are weak. They have told us that we must obey their rules because they have superior technology. Today, we proved them wrong." Thomas paused for effect. "We defeated their fleet. We boarded their flagship. The High Prelate is our prisoner. The Synod is not invincible. Their shields can fall. Their ships can burn. If we can do it, you can do it too." On the screens, Thomas stepped aside to show Vex, sitting in his chair, looking defeated and angry. The image of the Supreme Leader being held prisoner by humans was more powerful than any weapon. "Stand up," Thomas said to the galaxy. "The time of fear is over." David watched the broadcast go out. He knew that this signal would cause chaos. The Synod controlled hundreds of worlds. There were thousands of species that hated the Synod but were too afraid to fight. Now, they had proof that the Synod could bleed. "Captain," Lisa said over the radio, "I am detecting energy spikes from the remaining Synod ships. They are retreating. They are jumping to hyperspace." David looked at Vex and smiled. They saw their leader captured. They saw their shields fail. They are running away. "They will be back," Vex spat. "You cannot defeat the entire council." "We don't have to defeat them all," David said. "We just have to make them afraid of us." David signaled his team. "Secure the bridge. Take Vex to the shuttle. We are taking him home." The battle was over. The humans had won. They had used their simple railguns to break the shields and their experimental teleporter to break the line. Now, they had captured the enemy leader and broken the silence of the galaxy. The Council's control was gone, shattered by a group of humans who refused to give up Dot as the shuttle lifted off from the alien flagship, carrying the most important prisoner in the galaxy. David looked out the window at his ship, the Iron Will. It was damaged, but it was still flying. "We did it, Lisa," David said over the radio. "We did, Captain," she replied. "Now, let's go home. We have a lot of work to do." The journey back to New Jeongju was quiet, but it was a peaceful quiet. The Iron Will led the human fleet through the stars, leaving behind the burning wreckage of the Synod blockade. Towed behind them was the massive, broken hull of the Aegis. It looked like a dead whale being dragged by a small boat, a symbol of the great victory dot inside the captured alien ship. High Prelate Vex sat in a small cell. The cell was bright, with no shadows to hide in. He did not look like a ruler anymore. He looked tired and old. His gold robes were dirty, and his head was bowed. Captain David Kim stood in front of the cell door, watching him. Ambassador Thomas Choi stood beside him. "He does not look so scary now," Thomas said. "He looks small." David nodded. "Power is an illusion, Thomas. When you take away the ships and the fancy technology, you are just left with a person. And people can be broken." Vex looked up. His eyes were full of hate. "You think you have won?" Vex asked. His voice was weak. "The council is vast. You have destroyed a tiny fleet. You have made a noise. That is all. The council will send 10,000 ships next time. They will turn your planet into dust." David smiled. It was not a mean smile, but a confident one. "Let them come. We learned something important today, Vex. We learned that your shields are useless against mass. We learned that your tactics are slow. And we learned how to teleport. By the time your council sends those ships, we will be ready." Vex looked away. He knew David was right. The balance of fear had shifted. As the human fleet arrived at the colony, the sight was amazing. The entire planet was lit up. Not by city lights, but by celebration. Ships flew around the planet, sounding their horns. The people on the surface were looking up, knowing that the blockade was gone. They were free. The fleet landed at the main spaceport. A huge crowd was waiting. There were thousands of people. They cheered as David, Thomas, and Lisa Park walked down the ramp of the Iron Will. They cheered louder when the guards dragged Vex out of the transport shuttle. Vex tried to cover his face, ashamed to be seen as a prisoner. David stood on a podium in front of the crowd. He felt tired. He had not slept in 2 days. His uniform was stained with oil and sweat. But he felt strong. "People of New Jeongju!" David shouted. The crowd went silent to listen. For a long time, we lived in fear. We let the Synod tell us what we could do. We let them take our technology. We let them treat us like children. We thought we were weak. David pointed to the sky. Today, we proved that we are not weak. We fought with honor. We fought with courage. And we won with human ingenuity. We used our minds and our hearts to beat an empire. The crowd roared. They clapped and stamped their feet. It was the sound of freedom. Thomas stepped up to the microphone. He had a piece of paper in his hand, but he did not look at it. He spoke from his heart. "We have captured High Prelate Vex," Thomas said. "But this is not just about revenge. We are sending a message to the entire galaxy. A message that will go out on every frequency, to every planet under Synod control." Thomas looked at the reporters and the cameras. "We are declaring our independence. From this day forward, New Jeongju is a free world. We will not pay taxes to the council. We will not follow their unfair laws. And we will share our technology with anyone who wants to fight for their freedom. The council's control is broken today.